In the demolition business, the harder they come, the harder they fall. You're about to witness the world's most spectacular implosions. Hold on to your seats as towering structures and world records come crashing down.
I remember the first day I pulled up on site and just kept looking and kept looking and kept looking, and it just seemed to never end, and I thought, we're out of our minds.
When I first walked up on it, it was like, wow, this is almost crazy.
On every level, that job was so incredibly challenging. Logistically, it was so huge.
This Super Bowl of implosions was one of the most complicated feats in demolition history.
Having a structure that big, that new in terms of construction, and having to make it do one thing, having one shot at it, and the eyes of the world on you, it's interesting. And that's the one project that stands out in my mind, personally.
We started looking at that job probably about 2 years before we actually started working out there. Seems like a long time, but when you're dealing with a structure that complex, it was necessary.
It was a job with serious engineering issues. Its sheer size and steel construction required one of the most sophisticated blasting plans ever created. The most difficult challenge demolition companies face is blowing up multiple structures at the same time. To have 4 or 5 buildings coming down at one time is almost impossible.
It was a very phased operation, workers going ahead of me drilling holes, us coming behind them and loading these holes, and a whole other team coming behind and wiring it. Everything was done in phases. It took weeks and weeks to load and wire. Probably one of the more interesting things was trying to connect them all together because the site was so expansive, but we still wanted to be able to push one button. So what this means is we have to connect all of these buildings together and time them to fail at different times.
The plan was to delay each detonation by a few seconds so the buildings would fall like dominoes.
It was the biggest building I've ever worked on, and the cases and cases and cases of trucks that came in. The inventory control was a job in itself.
Packed with 4,118 charges that would fall in seconds, taking a world record with it. Special explosives severed steel like sliced bread.
Nothing could have prepared me for what happened, because I don't care how many times you picture it in your mind, you just can't get your mind around something of that magnitude coming down. It was just huge. I actually stood on the top of a building that was supposed to remain and shot down across the site, and it was just absolutely amazing.
Reduced to a pile of rubble only 7 meters high, it was like scoring the winner in the Demolition World Cup.
Beautiful job, Jack.
It was a beautiful job. I don't think there's such a thing as a perfect job because we were always perfectionists beyond the pale.
Construction can take years, destruction only seconds. But there are some demolitions that are in a class of their own. Unusual, action-packed, or engineered to entertain, these are some of the most amazing engineering feats in the world.
Implosion could be both a science and an art, using one to create the other. We take the physics involved, the engineering, and can take a 20-story building or an 8-story building and turn it into this fluid, rolling demolition.
They want all smoke and mirrors, and we want to do the meat and potatoes. We've got to get a structure down.
Implosion is most definitely a spectator sport. It's visually exciting, it's loud, it just kind of rocks your senses, and people love that.
I was amazed. It follows, and I'd look now at dozens of demolitions just to see what they look like, what is the nature, is experiments on how you bring a building down symmetrically, straight down and rapidly. You knock out the core first, the core goes down, the sidewalls lean in a little bit, and the building comes down rapidly because you've knocked out the support. Well, that's exactly how Building 7 came down. The dramatic collapse of World Trade Center 7 is something everyone ought to see. I suspect that few have actually looked at it to date. It's very dramatic. It would be helpful actually to show a demolition of some other building, which we know is controlled demolition. So you can see how it dips in the middle, comes straight down and rapidly. And also you see coming off the sides these jets of gas and debris, smoke puffing out of there. And that's very typical of explosive demolition. All these characteristics, the straight down fall and the rapid fall. And then you would look at, for comparison, Building 7, and you can see what I mean. It really does look like an explosive demolition.
It's nice to be recognized for the work that you do. Is it paramount? No. Is it fun? Yes. To have the ability to say, hey, this in the Guinness Book of World Records, I did that.
The question remains, can these best of the best ever be bettered?
As far as record-breaking implosions, I don't know where that can stop. I don't think there's any limit. In general, I don't think there's anything that can't be imploded, no matter how tall the stack, how tall the building, what the building is next to. I believe that they can probably figure out a way to bring it down.
Bringing down buildings and breaking world records. The future of demolition is wide open. And in the end, the power and drama of each implosion will always be a sight to behold.